Good morning, all of you. In to so be patient. We should be starting at exactly 11:05. Thank you. So good morning again. It's exactly 11:05. Thank you all for joining this webinar. My name is Beth. I'm the Digital Content Officer at World Animal Protection. Today, we train our focus on the cruel multi-billion-dollar trade of wild animals. Leading this discussion is Edith Kabesime, the Wildlife Campaigns Manager at World Animal Protection. Edith is an animal welfare enthusiast who has dedicated most of her life in the fight for better animal welfare. In her presentation today, she will take us through the state of wildlife exploitation and why your voice is crucial to ensuring an end to the trade. Let's take the conversation global through the hashtag #EndWildlifeTrades. Our Twitter handle is @MoveTheWorldAF. Just before we kick off, we'll pop up 2 poll questions just to gauge your beliefs on wildlife trade. This will be up for 2 minutes, so kindly ensure you quickly select your answer. The results will be shared at the end of the webinar, and by then you will be able to tell if you were right or wrong in your answer. We'll also have a Q&A session after Edith's done with her presentation. So take the time to put in your thoughts and questions in the Q&A box provided on your screen. So to start us, we'll go forward and put up the poll. Take your time and select your answers. This will be up on your screen for the next 2 minutes. Thank you. Thank you to all of you who have participated in the poll. Quite some interesting results. But right about now, we will let Edith come on with her presentation for the next 15 minutes, after which we'll have the Q&A session. On to you, Edith, all the way from Entebbe, Uganda.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. Just repeat, my name is Edith Kabesime, and I'm the Wildlife Campaigns Manager at Wild Animal Protection Africa. So I'm excited this morning to be with you and to engage in a conversation with all of you on the global trade in wild animals, why this trade needs to end. So that is really the topic of today. I'll take you through this presentation will focus on basically 3 areas. I'll talk about broadly wildlife trade, but I'll also talk about it in the context of the current situation, that is the COVID-19 situation. Then I'll move really to dwell more about how this is impacting our global health. I'll also talk about how it is impacting on animal welfare, and I'll also touch a bit of the impact of wildlife trade on conservation. And of course, ultimately, would like us to call upon the G20 leaders at their next summit to put an end on wildlife trade. So for me, really, COVID-19 is a wake-up call for the whole world, and is the case for the global wildlife trade ban. Something that we should think about. It has never been urgent than now, and this is why at this point in time, we are calling upon the global community to rally behind this cause. The origin, of course, of COVID-19, a pandemic that is ravaging the whole world, leaving a trail of destruction, is thought to have begun in China, in Wuhan city, where wild animals were traded together with food and all sorts of other commodities. We know that while scientists are struggling to find out the exact animal where it could have come from, evidence that we currently know points to the fact that COVID-19, the virus we call SARS-CoV-2, originated from bats and seems to have jumped to pangolins, and then from pangolins to human beings. At least that is the science and that's the evidence we currently have. While we are saying it all started all the way in Wuhan, China, we all know that selling of wild animals is not unique to that part of the world. It is widespread. It is a widespread practice. It is something that dates back, I think, as long as human beings have been on the face of this earth. But I think it's different now because we are living in different times. If you look at those 2 pictures, we can't run away from the fact that we have exploited wild animals in ways that perhaps were different from the way our ancestors did. Eating bats, using pangolins as in traditional medicine. And those are the 2 animals that are being suspected where COVID-19 seems to have, the virus that causes COVID-19 seems to have originated from. I want to quickly jump into how this pandemic or how wildlife trade is impacting on, has implications for global health. As I said, we are in this situation just because of the way we have related with animals. Human health threat is an issue which has been magnified by the global crisis we are currently living in. I mean, people around the world are suffering, people have lost their loved ones, people have lost their lives. We are suffering from mental health because of the isolation we are in. People have lost jobs. Companies are nosediving. They are laying off people. And all this, we cannot really just sit back and as if nothing has happened. The whole world is suffering, and we need really to take this conversation seriously. I think because the way we have used wild animals has created a little bit certainly for disease, because as you all know, yes, much as we have lived with domestic animals, we know some of the diseases we suffer come from domestic animals, but we can't run away from the fact that we have introduced in our domestic ecosystems diseases that shouldn't have come to us. And that is because people are taking animals from the wild, or they are breeding them in captivity just to use them in medicine. And all this is happening in unregulated markets. It's happening in unhygienic conditions. It's happening in stressful conditions. And once animals are stressed, of course, that is a recipe for disease to jump from animals to us. Moving away from how this coronavirus or COVID-19 is impacting on us because of our relationship or how we have chosen to relate to animals, I think also animals in their own perspective, I mean their own right, we need to look into welfare issues. Just repeat, animals are the center of this cruel multi-billion-dollar business. We know that illegal trade, for instance, in terms of scale and scope, is next to, while I mean it's next to, for instance, human trafficking, trafficking of arms, and trafficking of drugs. And all this is happening unabated. And we believe whether it's legal or illegal, it's not right. When we trade animals in these ways, all we are doing is we are depriving them of their freedom. Freedom, first of all, to express their normal behavior, freedom to enjoy the food they could have enjoyed while in the wild, but also freedom from, being free from fear, distress, disease, injury, and all this in the name of satisfying human need, which is never going to be satisfied because the world's resources, including wild animals, is not indefinite, it's definite. In this industry, it's interesting how we simply ship wild animals around as if they were commodities. I mean, every plane perhaps you see in the skies, below those wings are animals. Below those wings are boxes and boxes of cages and cages of animals crammed together in poor health. And sometimes most of these animals actually never reach their destinations just because we need their body parts, because we need their derivatives to use them in all ways that we choose. I mean, we can't make no mistake. This is a business that is inherently cruel. Whereas we believe that maybe perhaps because it's legal, it's okay. But usually the conditions in which these animals live during capture, during exportation, and even finally in their destinations where they are used for whatever purpose, it's cruel, irrespective of the fact whether it is legal or illegal. And all this puts our public health at risk. I want, for instance, to pick an example of the African grey parrot. Certainly, a normal bird in the wild does not look like this one, which has lost all its feathers. African grey parrots are one of the most traded birds in the world. In fact, since the inception of CITES, CITES is the Convention International Trade in Endangered Species, came into existence in 1975. Records show that over 12 million African grey parrots have been exported out of Africa, mainly captured from the wild, and this is all legal, but even we cannot tell how many millions have been exported or trafficked, that we cannot quantify them because most of this trade happens undercover. Because African grey parrots are sentient and they have an intelligence almost of a 5-year-old, they suffer trauma just like human beings when they're exposed to such kinds of conditions, just because we want to have them in our homes as pets, as companions, and we breed them and trade them to make cash. Of course, countries in Europe, in Asia, in the USA, when it comes to volumes of who imports this, they rank highly. And I think there's no other time than now to call upon the G20 to begin to think about these issues. As I said, wildlife trade and consumption of wild animals or their products does not only happen in one part of the world. For instance, the civet cats, most of you, I believe, some of you, I believe, have heard that civet coffee can be produced through feeding or letting civet cats feed on coffee beans. And then the beans go through the digestive system. Then finally, when it comes out in the waste, then the beans are converted into coffee. And then someone will have a tasty cup of coffee on his table, her table. But behind this, they are still suffering in cages. And I think this is where we need to begin to think that you're taking this coffee, which has gone through the ass of civet, picking all sorts of, I believe, viruses. Yes, whereas coffee is processed and finally turns into a delicious cup of coffee, you never know what could happen in that process and what could happen to you, but also the chemicals it could have gathered through the gut, but also the condition that these animals live. I think it's something we cannot just keep a blind eye. The entertainment industry is not an exception. In Asia, for instance, elephants are ridden. Tourists travel the way from all over the world just to ride on elephants. Monkeys are captured, they are kept on chains like that, just simply to be taught tricks to entertain tourists. I mean, I know governments make a lot of money out of the tourism industry, but how can we have a tourism industry that is mindful of the welfare of the animals, but also an industry that is sensitive, that actually it is exposing people to zoonotic diseases like the COVID-19 that we are currently struggling with. In the recent past, maybe a decade or so, otters in Asia, especially Japan, have become another victim of entertainment. Civets are bred or captured from the wild, and they are kept in horrible cages the rest of their life. And then you have these trails of tourists coming and petting, while we believe the owners are deriving a livelihood out of these animals. But I think we need to think about, first of all, the lives of the animals themselves, but also the dangers that, first of all, the owners and the tourists themselves are putting themselves in, and of course, the rest of the world, when we allow such an industry to continue and thrive like this. Whereas last year, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, CITES, at their last summit, moved some of the otters to Appendix 1, therefore according them the highest protection status. We are yet to see whether this improves the status of otters in the wild, and how these are going to be enforced, such regulations are going to be enforced at the domestic level. I think we have made enough cries. As World Animal Protection, we have been in this business for the last 50 years, calling upon, telling everyone that wild animals should be left in the wild, where they should be, because that is their natural habitat. That's where they can express their natural behaviors, and that is where the only way they can enjoy and experience in a natural way. Wild animals are sentient, and what does that mean? It means animals, just like human beings, they can experience joy, they can experience sadness. I mean, they can have emotional bonds, just like how we human beings bond with our kind. Wild animals do the same. Every evening as I watch birds fly, they are usually in pairs, they are usually in groups, and that really sends a message that these are sentient beings. Anyone who has seen an elephant grieve the loss of their loved ones, and those who have seen dolphins playing with their pod, I mean, you will really get exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, we cannot overemphasize this. Global wildlife trade, I mean, indeed, it's a global phenomenon, and the problems associated with it, as COVID-19 has demonstrated, are indeed global. And I think that is why every country, including my own country, we are in a lockdown, just because of a global problem that has led to a global pandemic. And that is why we are saying such problems really need global solutions. So when we leave animals in the wild, we create a world as human beings where it's free of man-made animal suffering. And of course, ultimately, we will not be in situations where diseases threaten us, where diseases jump from wild animals and impact on us. I think those threats will be drastically reduced. And we can no longer afford, I mean, to leave everything to chance, as it has all seen. Because in the past, this is not the first time that we are suffering with diseases that have come from the wild. We have experienced Ebola, and the African continent has been one of those really badly hit continents. West Africa was on its knees a few years ago. Just a couple of months ago, I think at the beginning of this year is when the DRC was declared Ebola-free after being on its knees for almost 18 months. Uganda, where I sit and I live, has also not been spared. We lost over 200 lives a couple of years ago in northern Uganda, cuts of Ebola. And all these diseases have origins. We have evidence that over 70% of admissions of children that have been impacted by Salmonella is because they have in their homes snakes, they have all sorts of pets, and those seem to be the hosts that ultimately transfer these pathogens to the children. But besides that, it is a cruel industry that we must put an end on. Wild animals don't belong to us. If that was the case, for those who believe in God, I think God would have created all these animals in our houses everywhere. But these animals belong in the wild, and that is where indeed they have to be. And this will protect us from future pandemics. And this is why we are calling upon the G20 leaders. Those are the powerful countries, the likes of the US, the likes of the UK, and all the other big guys in Europe, in Asia, in South America, and of course on the African continent. We are talking about South Africa, which is the member of the G20. As leaders, they have a key role in managing this global pandemic. Of course, first of all, from the financial and social perspective of the pandemic. After all, these countries' records show, our evidence shows that, first of all, they're the biggest consumers of wild animals, but also some of them are the biggest exporters. In the case of African continent, for instance, we know South Africa is one of the biggest exporters and breeder and exporter of African grey parrots. It's one of the biggest exporters of pythons bred in captivity. But of course, there are other countries that like West Africa, in Ghana, Benin, and Togo, which are also the biggest exporters of wild-caught or farmed pythons, which end up in those markets in Asia and the USA, where they are ultimately used as exotic pets. So, because these countries are consumers and they kind of control the world, I think they have a responsibility when they meet at their next summit in November to put this issue on the agenda, because they can address the social and economic impacts of the disease, which of course as of now, we do not even know the economic impact, but I believe it will be in trillions of dollars by the time we get out of this. It may be this year, it may be next year, it may be maybe next year. I mean, 3 years from now, we do not know. But I think there's something fundamental that they need to address. They must address the underlying cause of the situation we are in. They must talk about wildlife trade, because that is where it all originates. If we can address the symptoms, as long as we don't address the root cause, then I think we'll not have done ourselves a service. We call upon countries to ban inter-country, both internally but also externally ban trade in wildlife. And this is the only way to protect ourselves. I mean, in my head, it's like I'm saying, when finally this is COVID-19 storm is over, shall we come to a global consensus as a humanity and also agree that whether legal or illegal, trade in wild animals is not good for us. It's not good for the animals themselves, but it's also not good for the planet. I'm also wondering, shall we continue to see major wildlife importing nations at forums like CITES, WTO, pushing to engage in more trade in these animals, or we will see conversation shifting to a more protective approach to our wild animals, and of course, a more protective approach to our economies and our health. And we know the aviation industry is one that has been badly hit by this COVID-19 pandemic. And the question I have is, will the airlines, once we are out and we are able to fly, will they mind more what they carry beneath their wings, or they will continue business as usual? Because more than ever before, the world is more interconnected, and partly this is facilitating global trade in wild animals. And finally, when people, tourists, are able to come out of their houses where they are currently locked, will they continue to demand interaction experiences that put the lives of animals at risk, that puts global health at risk? And of course, the travel companies, those that are in the travel industry, like the tour companies, finally, when they come out, will they continue to implement policies, continue with the policies that are insensitive the way we relate, the way we use animals, or they will shift the way they look at business and protect the animals in the first instance, but also protect their businesses, because I think they are being really badly hit, and that is something that they need to think about. And finally, is animal welfare going to be an important agenda for governments? Is it going to be an important agenda for multilateral bodies? Or it will continue to be an issue that international organizations like the one I represent keeps talking about and nobody cares here? Organizations like World Health Organizations, will they rethink their strategies, their health strategies? For instance, will they rethink really whether wild animals should be used as medicine? Right now, we know in China, bile from bears has been approved and has been recommended to be used in the treatment of COVID-19. Have we learned anything? If we can continue to believe that wild animal products can still be used to treat the disease that has been caused by this virus? And then what about the World Health Trade Organization? Shall we see negotiations and agreements that put animal welfare front and center? I believe, for me, this is a huge opportunity to right the wrong. And I've just been talking about the G20, but I don't believe it's also just simply the responsibility of the world leaders. It is also our responsibility as individuals, because we are the consumers. These world leaders can make policies for us, and that's what we are demanding, that they should make pro-animal policies. But we as individuals, what role can we play to put an end to this? And I think we can make better choices in the way we utilize wild, because we are the tourists, we are the business owners, we are the people in the travel industry, and I think we have a responsibility at individual level to make better choices for animals, but also ultimately make those choices which will ultimately positively deliver positive results to us. Finally, I want to close with a call to everyone, and also say that a total ban on wildlife trade is really what is urgently needed right now. Yes, of course, we know right now the focus is on saving lives, but I think this has to go hand in hand with addressing the underlying cause of why we are in this situation where we are in a crisis, and it's a matter of life and death, and of course, the attention is on saving lives. There is a need to change the way we relate with wild animals, and a total ban on wildlife trade is the way to go. And as the G20 meets at the next summit in November, we expect them to put this on the agenda. Besides the social issues, besides the economic issues, they will be discussing, I think, COVID-19 is very important to talk about, but more importantly, to talk about is, in the first instance, how this disease came about. And banning wildlife trade is something we look forward to, that these world leaders will come up with a position which will, I think, determine whether we continue business as usual or not. I would like to end here, and of course, thank you everyone for listening to me. I hope you've had interesting and exciting 20 minutes or so of my presentation. I'm happy to respond to questions and of course, also look forward to really positive and constructive conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Edith, for that amazing presentation. Indeed, we have a lot of questions coming in. In the interest of time, we will not be able to answer to all questions, but we'll endeavor to answer your questions even after this particular webinar. So on to the first question, Edith. Lucy is asking, China is giving wildlife farmers options to develop plant farming. What is wild animal protection giving to wildlife farmers in Africa? I'll take the question again. China is giving wildlife farmers an option to develop plant farming. What option is wild animal protection giving to wildlife farmers?
Thank you so much, Lucy. Of course, through Beth. Thank you, Lucy, for that very interesting questions. Yes, indeed, it is true that China is beginning to think about what options to give farmers to move away from using wildlife as food. And I think the China government, I was reading somewhere in the news that it's trying to pay off farmers that are involved in farming wildlife for different kinds of uses. Wild animal protection in one of our strategies, specifically under our Wildlife Not Medicine campaign, which is looking into the use, to stop the use of animal parts and derivatives as medicine. In China, particularly, and of course something that we would like also to scale up in Africa is moving people away from use animal products for traditional medicine and to show that there are plant alternatives. So currently we are working with a number of some academic institutions and researchers to come up with alternatives to some of the animal products or animal derivatives that people use in medicine, those that can be substituted for. So meaning that we can move our farmers from investing in animals to investing in plants, which plants will also serve a similar purpose. Over to you, Beth.
All right, thank you for that answer. We have another question coming from Cynthia. She's asking, what would be your position on the sleeping laws that protect wildlife in countries within Africa?
In Africa, of course, the laws are not even sleeping. In many countries, they are even obsolete. And in some countries, no, they are not even, I would even say not existing. If you look at the African continent, most of our laws are very old, and whereas, say, in some of the conservation, some laws have, some provisions have been embedded in some of the, say, wildlife protection laws, but I think a lot is missing in terms of animal welfare. So our strategy is to work with governments, first of all, support them to look into their laws with the idea to support them to review those laws. For instance, in Kenya, we've been following what is happening in terms of reviewing the laws. In South Africa, for instance, currently, there is a high-level panel of lions, elephants, and other animals that are bred in captivity for animal use. And what we are doing, we are engaging with those processes to ensure that ultimately those reforms address animal welfare issues. At international level, and of course what also involves Africa, we are also pushing for what we call the UDO, that is the Universal Declaration on Animal Welfare. Just like you have Universal Declaration on Human Rights, that is also something we are pushing for at international level, and of course this also involves Africa. A number of African countries like Tanzania, Kenya, and others have already supported us and endorsed the UDO, and it's something that we'd like to keep pushing. At the Africa level, we have worked with the African Union, and for the first time in the history of this continent, Africa has an animal welfare strategy. Something we are proud of and something we are proud to associate with, because this was a long, protracted process that culminated into the adoption and signing of endorsement of African strategy for animal welfare at the beginning of beginning of 2019 or towards the end of 2018. So those are some of the strategies we are putting in place on the African continent.
All right, thank you, Edith, for that one. We are getting another interesting question from a lady called Tebi. She's asking, why should we remind G20 countries to ban wildlife trade? Why should we remind G20 countries to ban wildlife trade?
At the beginning, I did mention that if you look at the COVID-19 infection trends, majority of the countries that have been heavily impacted by this disease, actually majority fall in the G20 group. But also at the same time, they are the biggest importers or breeders, consumers of wild animals. For instance, if we talk about the USA is one of the countries in the world that holds annual, for instance, pet expos. And you can't believe the millions of animals you find in those expos, just crammed in small boxes, small cages, being sold as commodities. But at the same time, we also have countries in Africa, and I mean just one country in Africa, which is an exporter, one of the biggest exporters of wild animals, that is South Africa. And they are the G20. And we believe they have the clout, they have the capacity to make decisions that move us away from the way we use animals, because wildlife trade has two sides. It has the demand side, but it also has the supply side. So if the biggest consumers, whom I said the majority fall within the G20, decide and say no more trade in wild animals, then I believe we will have addressed the biggest part of the issue by cutting off the demand.
Great, thank you for that, Edith. We have another question from an anonymous person. They didn't want to have their name up there, but they're asking, wildlife trade is a source of income as it creates job opportunities for people in poor African countries. By putting this ban, it will be important to avoid future pandemics, but what will be the alternative for those people who've been dependent on the wildlife trades?
Yes, of course, it is true that livelihoods in Africa are intricately related, intertwined with wildlife trade or wildlife utilization and consumption. I know, for instance, in Central Africa, many countries engaged in, we have widespread meat markets in West Africa, in Central Africa, and I think some parts of other Africa and even Asia. It's a big deal for some of those countries. I think what we are talking about is about making choices. We are talking about making choices. Should we make choices that endanger ourselves, or should we continue, should we look for alternatives? And that's why we're talking about alternative livelihoods. But also the other thing I wanted to clarify is that, yes, we are calling upon the global trade on wildlife trade. We are talking about inter-country trade, where, for instance, say my country, Uganda, is exporting, say, hippo teeth to other parts of the world, or crocodiles to other parts of the world. That is the kind of trade we are talking about. And if you look at the categories of people that are involved in that kind of trade, it is not the common man in my village. It is usually the elite. It is usually the big guys. So even the idea that global wildlife trade benefits rural livelihoods, to some extent, I think is a myth, because the benefits of global wildlife trade hardly trickle to the common man on the ground. But when it comes to subsistence use of wildlife, I think that is not what we are talking about, because human beings, especially in Africa, have evolved with wildlife use. They have hunted animals for food. And we are saying, as long as it is humanely done, it's a subsistence level, that is something that can be tolerated. But when it gets to a scale where it is commercial, African grey parrots are produced like as if you're milling maize. In fact, in some of the country, they are called maize mills. Parrot mills. Then that is where the problem is, because then there you're increasing the risk of transmitting disease. But it's also about educating the communities that depend on animals. For instance, in societies that, for instance, depend on, say, primates, they need to be taught and told that some of those animals can actually put their lives at risk. And as wild animal protection, that is, when we do awareness raising, those are some of the issues that we address. But I do agree that we need to find alternatives. And the governments, I think, can play a big role in supporting communities to find alternatives, just like how China is doing.
All right, thank you, Edith. And the final question for this session is, what can individuals do, within their premises, within their capabilities? What can an individual do to ensure that wildlife are protected, and how can they contribute to this whole process of the ban in wildlife trade? People want to know how they can contribute to this movement.
I think, as I said, yes, our leaders have a responsibility, but also as individuals, we also have a role that we can play. In the first instance, I know the affluent like buying, for instance, African grey parrots and ball pythons and also squirrels, tortoises, all sorts of weird and crazy wild animals, and keep them as pets. I think at individual level, that is where, for instance, we need to start and stop some of those behaviors and practices. We also need to educate, for instance, our children. In fact, at Wild Animal Protection, through some of the research we've done, we've come to understand that usually people take in pets, wild animals as pets in their homes because their children demand them, because they saw their friends with the same animal, so they also want it. So it's also about educating the young generation. And of course, as Africans, we are, I think, like 70% of our population is young generation. So we need to begin to educate the young generation to really learn to treat animals humanely, and also to know that mistreatment of animals can lead to pandemics like COVID-19. So this is an opportunity to teach our young people. We should use this opportunity to do it. And then, of course, for the general public, Wild Animal Protection, through this campaign, we are training, we are promoting this campaign through a petition, and we are calling upon the general public. You get on our website and log in and sign our petition And we want so many signatures that would really present to the G20 leaders and call upon them to put an end to wildlife trade. I think, and then of course, in our premises, if we already have wild animals, we shouldn't throw them away, because again, that is something that people have always asked me. If I have an animal already, what do I do with it? Should I throw it away? Of course not. You need to make sure that you continue to provide with it the best welfare provisions you can give possible. And in the event that you are not able to continue doing that, I believe in many countries across the world, there are wildlife facilities, like sanctuaries, like homes for stray animals. There are zoos. Of course, we believe zoos are a necessary evil, especially if those are there to rescue for rescued animals. We encourage people to take animals to facilities where they believe they can be given a better life. If you reach a point where you believe you don't want to keep this animal in your home.
All right, thank you, Edith. Thank you all for your questions. In the interest of time, we'll not be able to answer every single question, but after this webinar, we'll follow up with specific answers to the questions that you asked. At this juncture, I'd like to show the results for the first poll we held at the beginning, and so that you can all see your results. And maybe Edith, you can help me get to answer these questions. The first question was, where do you think COVID-19 originated from? And a majority of the people said it's from wildlife. What would you like to say about this particular question?
Really, up to this point, the evidence that scientists have put out is that COVID-19, first of all, the first case was identified in China, in Wuhan city. And the current evidence is pointing at the fact that it originated from a bat, possibly from a bat, jumped onto a pangolin. And as you know, pangolins are the most, in terms of scale, they are the most traded and trafficked animals in the world. And they are used a lot in China and other Asian countries for food and for traditional medicine. So that is the information available currently. So really for certain, what we are certain about is that it originated from an animal. But now what scientists are struggling with is which animals, how did it happen? That is now the mystery that everybody's trying to really find out.
All right. The second question was, which of the below statements are true? And 88% of our participants today said that wild animals can become endangered or extinct when traded. 69% said that wild animals can carry viruses and infections when traded, and 76% said that wild animals suffer in the wildlife trade. So out of all these statements, is there one that is more true than the other, or are they all true?
But I think what captures my attention, and of course in relation to the situation we are currently in, is the fact that wildlife can transmit diseases to human beings. And I think that is where we need really to put a focus, but also know that how diseases jump from animals to human beings is of the way we use them. Because when animals are stressed and are living in conditions that are not proper for them, then their immunity goes down. And that, of course, leads to disease. And then disease, once animals are diseased, then the pathogens can easily jump from from the animals to human beings. And I think that is where we also need to be careful about issues of animal welfare. So basically those statements are right and they are all related. Good animal welfare means good life for animals, less diseased animals, and the low risk of disease jumping from wild animals to human beings.
All right, thank you, Edith. We will share one final poll as we close this meeting. As we said, for all unanswered questions, we'll endeavor to answer them after this particular webinar. This video will also be available on our YouTube channel should you want to share this video with your friends and family. Yeah, but at this point, the petition will be shared to your email addresses, the email address that you use to register to this webinar should you want to take part in the petition that we are targeting the G20 leaders. So at this juncture, I'll put up the final poll. Once you participate, you can leave the meeting as you please. Thank you very much for attending.